It was a bitterly cold morning when young Howard trudged along the dusty country road, his empty stomach growling with a hunger that had long since become too familiar. His shoes, worn thin at the soles, made a scraping sound against the gravel. He pressed his small hands into the pockets of his faded trousers, but the chill still cut through him. He wasn't just hungry for food, he was hungry for hope. Life had not been kind to him. His father had died when he was only a boy, and his mother struggled to feed her children by working long hours in the fields. Howard tried to help, but the odds were always against them. Often, he went days with only scraps of bread or a thin soup to keep him going. On this particular morning, his hunger was unbearable. Desperate, he decided he would ask for help from someone in the village. He rehearsed in his head as he walked, maybe if I ask kindly, someone will give me a piece of bread, or maybe just a drink of water. He told himself he would knock on just one door. If they turned him away, he would go on hungry. At the first house he reached, he lifted his trembling hand and knocked. The door creaked open, and standing there was a young girl, not much older than himself. She had kind eyes, though her clothes showed she was not rich either. For a moment, Howard's courage wavered. His lips were dry, his voice barely above a whisper. "Ma'am, I'm hungry. Could you spare just a drink of water?" The girl looked at him, seeing the pale cheeks, the hollow eyes, the boy on the edge of collapse. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped back inside and returned with a tall glass, not of water, but of milk. Thick, fresh, and cool. Howard stared at it in disbelief. Milk was a luxury, something he hadn't tasted in weeks. He held the glass with both hands as if it were treasure. Slowly, he drank, savoring every drop until the glass was empty. "How much do I owe you?" he asked timidly, embarrassed by his need. The girl shook her head with a gentle smile. "You don't owe me anything. Mama taught me never to accept pay for kindness." For a moment, Howard couldn't find words. He just nodded, his eyes stinging with tears. Then, thank you, ma'am," and with that, he walked away, his hunger eased, but something far greater filling him. For the first time in a long while, he felt seen. Years rolled on. Howard worked hard, determined to change his destiny. He studied late into the night, often by candlelight, and eventually pursued a career in medicine. Through sheer determination, he became a respected doctor, known not only for his skill but for his compassion. Yet life had a strange way of circling back. One evening, in the emergency ward of a large city hospital, a patient was rushed in. She was a woman from a nearby village, dangerously ill with a rare condition. The younger doctors struggled with her case, uncertain of the treatment. When Dr. Howard was called to examine her, he froze. There, lying on the hospital bed, was the same young girl, now a woman, who had once given a poor, starving boy a glass of milk. He recognized her instantly. Though years had passed, he could never forget those kind eyes. She was unconscious, fighting for her life. Howard's heart tightened. He whispered to himself, "This time, it's my turn." He dedicated himself completely to her care. Day and night he stayed by her side, overseeing every detail, consulting with specialists, trying every possible treatment. Weeks passed, and slowly, she began to recover. At last, the day came when she was strong enough to sit up in bed. Relief washed over Howard like sunlight after a storm. But he also knew what was coming next, the bill. The woman's family was poor, and the hospital costs were enormous. Fear and worry weighed heavily on them. The woman herself whispered anxiously to a nurse, "How will I ever pay this debt? It will take me a lifetime." Howard overheard her words. He smiled gently, walked to her room, and handed the nurse the final bill in an envelope. The nurse placed it in the woman's trembling hands. She braced herself, opening it with dread, only to see something that made her eyes fill with tears. Across the page, in bold handwriting, were the words, "Paid in full, with 1 glass of milk." The woman's lips quivered as she read it again and again. In that moment, all the fear melted away, replaced by a warmth so profound it filled the room. Howard remembered every detail of that day from his childhood, the hunger, the desperation, the knock at the door. He remembered how that glass of milk had not just filled his stomach, but revived his hope. And now, after so many years, life had given him the chance to repay the kindness tenfold. The story of Howard and the woman spread far beyond the hospital walls. People spoke of it in churches, schools, and homes. It became more than just a tale about generosity, it was proof that kindness never disappears. It circles back, sometimes years later, in ways no one could predict. But the journey to that moment had not been without struggles. Howard's path to becoming a doctor was riddled with challenges. There were nights when exhaustion nearly crushed him, days when rejection letters piled up, and seasons when money was so scarce he considered giving up altogether. Many times, he wondered if fate was against him. Yet in his darkest hours, he remembered that girl's smile, her refusal to accept payment for kindness, and the simple gift of milk that had carried him through. That memory became his anchor, reminding him that even in the coldest world, goodness existed. It pushed him to keep going, to fight for his dream, and to one day serve others with the same compassion. The woman, too, had faced her own struggles. She had grown up in poverty, helping her mother raise siblings, working long hours in fields, and sacrificing her own dreams so her family could survive. She never expected repayment for the small kindness she gave that day. To her, it was just a natural act of humanity. She had forgotten it even happened, but the universe had not. When she left the hospital, she carried more than her health, she carried a story. A reminder that every small act, no matter how insignificant it seems, can change a life. She told her children, her grandchildren, and anyone who would listen, do good, not because you expect something in return, but because kindness always finds its way back. Howard continued his work as a doctor, healing bodies and touching hearts. And whenever he faced exhaustion or doubt, he thought of the note he had written, paid in full with one glass of milk, and smiled. The message: we live in a world often rushing, often cold. But kindness, pure, uncalculated kindness, never disappears. A simple gesture, a glass of milk, a word of encouragement, or a smile can ripple through time, returning in ways greater than we could ever imagine. So, whenever you have the chance, choose kindness. You may not see the results today, tomorrow, or even years from now. But somewhere, somehow, that kindness will circle back, paying dividends far richer than money could ever buy. And when it does, it will remind you, as it did Howard and the woman, that love and generosity are never wasted. They are seeds, seeds that bloom, often when we least expect it, into miracles that change lives forever.